Dr. Jenny Tran is joining us for another consecutive year as our panel moderator to facilitate a meaningful discussion featuring 2 patients and 2 caregivers impacted by pancreatic cancer. Attendees will have the honor of hearing personal stories, perspectives, and insights from survivors. They'll answer questions about how they navigated their diagnosis, what they wish they knew then, and what they want you to know now. Dr. Tran is a licensed psychologist at Simsman UCLA Center for Integrative Oncology. She provides clinical care for patients and family members touched by cancer, centered around the emotional, psychological, social, and spiritual impacts of cancer. We love her and are so thankful that she's back to host this once again. So without further ado, our esteemed panel.
Thank you. Oh, I forget. I'm getting ready to hold the mic. Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Lisa mentioned, I have the great privilege of concluding today's stimulating and encouraging symposium with the remarkable panel that Amy and I looked and put together. This year's panel discussion will highlight similarities and differences in approaches to coping with cancer so that you, the attendees here and at home, have a range of strategies and perspectives, may connect with the real human experience of navigating cancer individually, as well as with the support and consideration of others. So I'm going to introduce our panel. First up, we have Julie Lope, who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in October 2004 and is approaching her 20th year of survivorship. Leading up to her diagnosis, Julie thought she was in the best shape of her life. She had just finished her first triathlon sprint only 6 weeks prior to diagnosis. Wow. She did not suspect much when she experienced a stomach ache, as she rarely got them. And although shocking and earth-stopping of the experience, she shares feeling lucky with having an intuitive local internist and caring friends, ultimately getting diagnosed early and then getting connected to cancer care here at UCLA and Johns Hopkins. After 8 cycles of chemotherapy and frequent trips between Los Angeles and her home base, Santa Barbara, for over 8 months, she was able to undergo the Whipple procedure, and she didn't need treatment following the surgery. Today, Julie will share about her motto of leaving no stone unturned as she reflects on everything she tried to do to help herself and her chances of survival and survivorship. She wishes to offer you all ideas, motivations, and hope for you all today. Another very special survivor seated to Julie's left, and an exciting, unique feature for all of us at this year's symposium panel is Tom Arai and his caregiver and wife, Tony Arai. And I believe this is our first time having a patient and caregiver on our panel together. So we hope to highlight the real human experiences that they shared. Tom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in June 2015 and is approaching his 9th year, let's round up, of survivorship. Like Julie, Tom considered himself healthy and physically active prior to his diagnosis, was not experiencing significant symptoms aside from mild back pain, slight stomach discomfort, but his cancer had spread to his liver and lungs by the time of his diagnosis. After chemotherapy, Tom was informed he did not have detectable cancer in his body and has since been on maintenance treatment for the past 7.5, 8 years. In addition to his medical team, Tom significantly credits the support of his wife, Tony, and their children during his treatments, which allowed him to focus on his care and effectively manage his side effects. It was the adjustment after active cancer treatment that led Tom searching for support and guidance with navigating post-treatment survivorship. And for that reason, Tom has been hosting a weekly Zoom call for survivors and caregivers of pancreatic cancer for the past 4 years. And then by his side, figuratively and literally, we have Tony, his wife and caregiver with us all. Tony, she dealt with her own history of chronic health issues and unanswered questions for many years, was ultimately diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder in November 2011 at UCLA. Tom balanced work and care for Tony, which allowed her to learn more about her diseases, how to manage her myriad of symptoms, and allowing her health to eventually stabilize over time. Then a few years later, their roles flipped when Tom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So in addition to her background in pharmaceutical sales, Tony utilized her learned experiences with coping with chronic illness to support Tom in his cancer journey. So she joins us here today with an extensive list of strategies specific to cancer as well as applicable to managing chronic health. And she brings that perspective as a caregiver. And then last but not least, we have Ray Szymanski, who was a caregiver and son to his late father, Walter. Walter was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at age 68 after Ray and his family were visiting for Christmas in 2003. After a battery of tests in their community of Las Vegas, his doctor shared that if Walter was his father, he would bring him to Los Angeles for treatment, which led them to UCLA, where they met Dr. Hines. Ray and his wife, Terry, became the primary support system for Walter. Brothers and sister-in-law supported remotely. I want to share this before we jump into the discussion. Walter's 4 pillars for living with his diagnosis were faith, family, fun, and physicians. Walter continued to cultivate fun in his life, follow up with his physician, being able to witness the birth of 2 grandchildren, creating multiple memories. And so it's an honor to have you here today and to be able to honor your father's life. So thank you all for joining us here today. Wanted to, really do justice to the stories and also finish this discussion on time so you all can head home. So I had the opportunity to meet with this panel before and get a sense of the stories and how can we share all of this with you under 30 to 40 minutes. And one of the salient and consistent threads of perspective I heard from my conversations with our panelists is the value of support from others and from each other. So I want to start off with you, Julie, our veteran survivor. Given that you were diagnosed almost 20 years ago, in what ways did you need support then, and how did you find it, and how did you use it?
I have to give credit to my now deceased husband. The most important thing for me was that he just be there. And I never understood the meaning of, well, you've got to be there for somebody. It's kind of a trick expression. But to actually physically be there for me at all times with everything that happened in my life, it was the thread of support that went through everything I did. Now, he was kind of a quirky guy, and he was an intellectual professor type, and he just couldn't even stand the look of a Band-Aid, but he really was just there all the time. And he also provided me with a whole lot of fun. So first of all, I have to give him credit. Also, whenever I felt blue and didn't know quite what to do, he would massage my feet. And there was something so almost holy about that. I had to drive into Los Angeles. I just knew intuitively that in Santa Barbara 20 years ago, there wasn't the kind of support for pancreatic cancer. And I just didn't even know what to do about it. It was a local doctor who diagnosed it almost on intuition. So I quickly found friends there who found Dr. Isikoff at the time, and that was my wonderful thing. I also had a buddy system. Girlfriends got together and decided they would meet with me every week, and we would talk about what was happening. They also drove me. I had to come in weekly for my infusions. I also attended a free localized program for pancreatic cancer people, or just cancer people, at the local gymnasium. And all through were my children, who were 2 to 5 hours away, but they came with me to cancer camp, and through the surgery, and friends and family. I just can't say enough, and my time is up.
I hope to get back to that though, because you do have such great tips. And Tom, I believe you had a slightly different needs and experience with when you needed what type of support, if you can speak to that.
Yes, thank you. Two things helped me a lot when I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. The first was being my wife's caregiver. She had 2 very difficult autoimmune diseases. She was in and out of hospitals for a year. She was in bed the rest of the time. And it showed me what it was like to be a fighter. I had never been sick in my life before. I think the last time I was in a hospital was at 9 years old and having my tonsils out. I've always been active. I did some bad things. I smoked cigarettes for too long, and that probably caused my pancreatic cancer. But from age 29, I rode a bike, jogged, did a lot of things. Another thing that helped me in fighting pancreatic cancer, at the age of 7, I was on vacation with my parents, my family, and we were up north at a lake in Northern California, and I wandered off into the deep water and I almost drowned. My mom immediately put me that summer into swimming lessons, and I never got past beginners. I could swim in water that I could stand on the bottom, but as soon as I went in and over my head, I just panicked. The next summer, she put me in swimming again, and I went from beginners to advanced swimming, and I started competitive swimming at the age of 9. And I continued in competitive swimming until my freshman year in college. I think that experience did 2 things. I'm not a big person, and I don't know if you know anything about swimming, but you need to be pretty big to be a sprinter. I was not a sprinter. I was a long-distance swimmer. And being a long-distance swimmer, you don't think about swimming 72 laps. 72 laps being a mile race. You just focus on being in the moment, finishing that lap, and just continuing on. I always tell people, you need to live one day at a time. Well, for me, it was thinking about swimming 1 lap at a time, and that just kind of helped a lot. I am also very fortunate that I had support from my wife, from my son, who would drive me to my chemo back and forth, and meeting a fabulous oncologist, Dr. Tara Siri. Not everyone has that opportunity or has that situation, and so about 4 years ago, I fell into an opportunity to co-host a Zoom call group, and have met a lot of survivors who didn't have that support in the beginning. And that's one of the key things I think our support group brings, is that initially when people are in shock or in denial that they have pancreatic cancer, the group we have is almost like a family, and they help everybody, and that is something that is very dear to my heart.
Thank you, Tom. So I'm so struck by the range of perspectives and strategies that you both are sharing, strategies used during treatment, as well as the importance of having support in survivorship. I want to include the caregiver perspective. Something that I remind the caregivers I work with is giving themselves permission or revaluing the need to care for themselves in this process, because so much of that care goes to the person dealing with the brunt of the physical symptoms of cancer. Ray, I want to know if you can share a bit of your experience with navigating and using support for yourself as a caregiver.
Well, back when my dad got diagnosed in 2004, there definitely were not the resources that we have today. The things that we as a family kind of gathered our wagon train together and helped to support my dad. And but the things that are out there now, things like SimsMan, things like the foundation that this family built, those resources were not as developed as they are today. The software that Dr. Herman is putting together, oh my goodness. I mean, if we had a tool like that back then. So I would definitely encourage you to find what is best not only for the person that's having the fight, but also you as the caregiver. You need to recharge. You need to take care of you. You cannot take care of the person fighting the disease if you're not in shape to fight alongside of them. You need to also take care of you. And that's one of the things that we found here at UCLA, even back in the day. 2004 to me, compared to what is available today, is the Stone Age. And but even back then, we had incredible support here at this facility. So we were very blessed in that regard. Cannot tell you how important it is for self-care. So whatever it is that you need to do for you as a caregiver, you need to take that break. You need to pass the torch for a while, whether it be to a child or a friend or a neighbor. One of the things my father did, he loved Monday Night Football. He would go out, during football season to a local bar in Las Vegas, and he had his group of friends there that gave my mother a break, okay? My mother went on vacations and had friends and relatives come in and take care of my dad. Don't forget about you as the caregiver, because only if you are whole and strong can you support that person that you're trying to help. So.
Thank you, Ray, for naming some of the organizations like the Hirschberg Foundation that offer support for both the patients, the survivors, the caregivers as well. And it's so helpful to hear you all highlight the different ways that patients and caregivers need support throughout the cancer experience and the whole entire trajectory, like Dr. Eden Brower mentioned, the trajectory of the cancer experience. I want to spend some time facilitating reflection and identifying helpful tips unique to each of the major transitions throughout the trajectory. What are some helpful strategies you all have for the beginning when waiting to hear if it's cancer or knowing it's cancer and waiting to determine the plan? If Tony and Ray want to first speak as caregivers about that.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I was a former pharmaceutical sales rep, so by the time Tom was sick, my health was stabilized, and I used my knowledge to basically be his oncology nurse. I'm not a nurse, but I learned everything I needed to learn on Google. Whatever I didn't understand, I read all of the clinical papers and studies that was available prior to us going to his first oncology appointment, because I wanted to make that appointment very meaningful. So when the doctor spoke to me, at least I knew where she was going, what the potential trials could be. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, but I can understand clinical papers. And the one study that she said he was perfect for because of his health condition, and he was, virgin patient. He didn't have chemo before this, was a clinical trial that included PEG-20. And PEG-20 was being used in other cancer trials for colon cancer and breast cancer. And as soon as she explained it to me, because I had sold a drug that involved hyaluronic acid, and what they believed was the tumor, the pancreatic tumor, puts out this defense mechanism that doesn't allow the chemo to penetrate the tumor. So even though you're getting systemic chemo, it's not penetrating and people were dying. And with this trial, Tom was so successful. This clinical trial, and he was on the PEG-20 side, and I was praying that he would be on that side of the trial, and it worked fantastically for him. He survived, And at the end of the trial, I did speak to the doctor, and no one else survived in this clinical trial.
Wow.
And it was about a year later, his CA19-9 started at like 35,000. And I had asked the doctor at the time, what is normal? And she said it was 6. And we were so far from normal. During this trial, he was getting his infusions, and every month or week or however he was getting his labs, those numbers were going down so quickly, hundreds, thousands. And I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I said, is this normal? Is this how other people are, you know, how the results are for other people? And she said a lot of people are doing well. She didn't specifically tell me. Some people did really well, but then their cancer started to grow, but his never, ever went back up. And we couldn't believe the results. And I was so happy that this was a trial that the doctor picked out. I didn't choose it. I just was aware of some of the components of the drugs.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to say to the caregivers is we didn't have this kind of support that UCLA and the Hirschberg Foundation is providing. That would be great for anybody who doesn't have the wherewithal to search on the internet, to do self-study. But I do encourage everyone at the beginning of your cancer treatment to learn as much as you can about pancreatic cancer, because when you go into your doctor's visit with your partner, you can be the eyes and ears that maybe they cannot focus on, so that you can ask informed questions and have a more meaningful doctor's appointment. I like to try, even for myself, with all the multiple health issues that I have, I write down all of my questions before I get to the doctor's appointment. If I see them monthly, I wait for the appointment. I write everything down. But the use of a medical, I taught Tom to use a diary. And this is not just a food diary. This is a medication diary. This is any kind of intake and outtake. It's like when you're in the hospital, they're writing everything down on a chart. That's what this diary is. Just a little book, a booklet. And I think for cancer, you should write it in a book. I used this myself when I had myasthenia gravis, and I was able to go symptom-free by just monitoring my symptoms, knowing when I could exercise. All the doctors told me, no, don't exercise, you're going to use up all of your resources. But what I knew about health is you need to keep moving, you need to get some fresh air, and I got off my meds. So when Tom got diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, Tony, I'm sorry, I'm gonna pause you there just because I wanted to give Ray the opportunity to ask.
Very
add to
brief, I
that
promise.
really briefly.
My wife won't believe it, but I'll be brief. Okay. So going in back in 2004, Dr. Google, okay, we went to American Cancer Society, I believe, website. Their recommendation was go to a facility that does 1 Whipple a month. We came, we had an appointment with Dr. Hines. One of the questions that I wrote down, how many Whipples do you do? At that point, he was doing 1 per week, okay? 1 per week. You heard a doctor here today that did 1,500. If you can get to a facility that does high volume, you need to try and get there, for 1. And 2, remember that regardless of the doctor, this fine gentleman here, they work for you. You're giving them the trust to take care of your loved one. You have to be that advocate, and you're interviewing them as much as they're finding out if you're treatable or whatever treatment plan they're going to have. You need to interview the doctor and be comfortable with that doctor for you and for your loved one, okay? So don't be afraid to do that.
Thank you to our 2 caregivers for sharing guidance during that initial period of uncertainty, fear, overwhelm. That's why I started with you all, because when you're first diagnosed, I hear that it's really hard to navigate and ask the questions, and so leaning on that support system to be the one to do a lot of that. I'm curious to hear the reflections of our 2 survivors on the topic of percent and numbers and rates of survival. That's something that we talked about. Julie.
Well, the fear and the overwhelm, I can't even tell you. I felt like I was in another world, like nothing was real anymore. I couldn't believe it. I was in the best health of my life. And I was 65 at that time, and that was 20 years ago. I was stunned. Didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to think. All I knew was that it was really, really, really a bad one. We all hear it's a formula for death or whatever, and I was just terrified. So I looked up the percentage of survival. At that time, it was 3%. Those were pretty overwhelming odds. And I thought, well, there is 3%. Someone has to be in that 3%. Why not me? I've never played by the odds in my life, and I'm not going to start now. The numbers are out there. They're real. But I'll do everything I can. That is in my side. There's got to be a way. And if not, I'll still have the journey in my favor. And I began using every skill I'd ever learned, every resource I had. My motto was leave no stone unturned. One of the hardest was to corral my own mind, to be totally realistic, and yet at the same time, to learn to deal with what I called the dark night of the soul. Fortunately, meditation, and it would last for about a day. And then, bingo, I'd pop out again and go back to doing every single thing I could.
And then I want to compare that and to hear from Tom's perspective, which is a little bit different about your approach and how you think of numbers and percentages.
Yeah. I do have a different perspective. I've been running a Zoom group for over 4 years. I've probably talked to over 100 pancreatic cancer survivors, and every one of us are different. And the one thing I take away from that is the percentage, whatever it is, of our survival is just a number. It doesn't define us. It really doesn't even describe our condition. If the percentage is 1 or 2% survival for 5 years, when I was first diagnosed, I think survival for 5 years was less than 1%. There are other people like me with stage 4 who survived. Was our chance of survival 1/2 of 1%? No. Each of us were different. I think a lot of people who joined my Zoom group initially are depressed because they read this stuff on the internet and it says, survival rate for pancreatic cancer is so low, and on top of being newly diagnosed, on top of having to get your arms around the disease and figure out what to do, it's overwhelming. So the statistic is just a number.
Thank you. Thank you to both Julie and Tom for reflecting on that. And what I want to highlight in them sharing the different perspectives is it has to work for you, right? If that's going to be something that motivates you and something that is going to be a powerful drive, or something that's going to be distracting and that's not going to be helpful, to tend to that there is no right or wrong approach or recommendation, but to be able to hear from two people that navigated this. Thank you so much, you two. I want to shift over to the during treatment. I know you all have so many rich nuggets of knowledge, growing pains, lessons learned that many of you actually already alluded to during the grueling demands of treatment. Julie, I want to go back to your motto and ask you to expand a little bit on leaving no stone unturned. You started to talk about that. I just want to let you add anything else.
Well, here are all the things that I did, and I'll go through rather quickly. I first of all found the Cancer Center, and I would go faithfully every month. They had a meeting every single month. I also found a cancer camp, where we went to camp with all people who had a life-threatening diagnosis. That lasted a week. I found a nutritionist who would give me nutritional information. I got myself a cook because my guy was not a cook, and neither was I. And so, because my dietary needs changed. And so I got myself a cook. I enrolled in a 2 times a week exercise program that was especially for cancer patients in Santa Barbara. I was a spiritual overachiever. I belonged to a Unitarian support group. I embraced Judaism, which I'd been studying for many years with my rabbi. And I did the Bet Din, and I became Jewish. I wanted to die as a Jew. I also went ongoing meditation and in depth with that to stimulate my immune system. I knew that that was one of the ways in which you can really support yourself. I went to a local palliative care counselor. I had a witch doctor, Sangoma, South American, Stanford medical doctor graduate, who was my witch doctor. I went to a hairdresser about my wigs. I collected, listened to tapes and books. I saw all the various doctors before surgery, my blood pressure, my thyroid, circulatory system. I made an altar for my family and my friends, and I prayed to them. I took family and stuff to come with me at my appointments. I went to visit my family's graves in Arizona and asked for their help. I wrote love letters to all the people I had loved, including my ex-husband and my brother.
It sounds like it was really important to try everything and to also say everything that you wanted to say. And then Tony, I felt so much passion and drive when you were reflecting on a lot of the strategies that you pulled from yourself that you applied in taking care and supporting Tom. I'm curious, amongst the two of you, was there somewhere aside from your own experience that you pulled all of these tips from, or is there a place that you can find a lot of these tips for patients or caregivers?
I'm here to tell you that Dr. Google, if you cannot reach your care provider, your nurse, and you're curious because it's in the middle of the night, something has happened to your partner, it's Google. It has everything. That's how UCLA diagnosed my immune problem that 4 other hospitals could not diagnose. They did the same testing, they just didn't read it. I came to UCLA at the end of 2011, and they were the only hospital to diagnose my rare condition. And when they told me what I had, I said, well, how did you figure this out? And they said they Googled it. So I said, what did you Google? So because I said, I could have done this myself. So I Googled it. And they said they had also written a paper about my condition, which is called GOOD syndrome, in case anybody needs to know, this is not about me. But they had written a clinical paper on it because they had 2 patients with the same disorder in the previous year, in 2010. And I said, can I have the paper? And they gave it to me. And when I went back to my regular doctors in Orange County, no one knew what I had. So I distributed this clinical paper to all my other specialists. So what I'm saying is, you people can Google anything.
I will caution as a psychologist that doing that at nighttime probably is not good for sleep. So that's something I call worry time. I did a talk last year, refer back to that video, but it sounds like how we use knowledge and resources is important. So Tom, I was actually thinking about what you mentioned during the call, a resource that many other of the doctors reference.
Actually, I have a different opinion, but...
And that's important. I want to highlight the difference in caregiver-patient experience, which is real.
One of the best informational documents I've ever seen on pancreatic cancer is one sponsored by the Hirschberg Foundation called NCCN. The current edition is NCCN 2023 Pancreatic Cancer, and then NCCN 2022 Neuroendocrine Tumors. And they are fabulous documents. They are comprehensive. They cover every aspect of the disease and treatment, but written in layperson's terms. And in my Zoom group, any new person that joins, I send that to them as a PDF, And I know when Amy refers a participant to me, she gives them that document, and it's a fabulous document. And for those of you who can't read Dr. Google, and I'm one of them, these two articles are fabulous.
I second that opinion because that was not around when Tom
Yeah.
was diagnosed in
Sure.
2015. All of the tools
You do the best
that
you
I've learned
can.
about
Yeah.
from the Hirschberg Foundation and today is just amazing.
Yeah.
But that is fabulous because it has all the questions, it has a medical diary, it has a lot of tools that people should,
Yeah.
look into.
And as we transition to survivorship, the cancer trajectory there, and following up with Dr. Donahue's reference to actually the survivorship speech that Dr. Brower gave, we reference survivorship and survivors as including both the patients and the families, and survivorship as beginning the moment you're diagnosed. I'm curious for the panel, as we wrap up, if there's anything important or notable that you want to share and reflect on regarding what was supportive and helpful with the adjustment after finishing treatment.
Well, the first thing I want to say is, again, just an applause to the Hirschberg Foundation, because there was nothing like that at the time. And I felt abandoned once I survived. I didn't know there was nobody to talk to. There was nobody to deal with. So thank you again. My palliative counselor said, don't forget what you've learned here. And time passes. Some of the times I do forget. But I remember and pull out of my bag of tricks that I learned when I was in survivorship, the different things that I learned at that time. And I use whatever tools I need to get on with my life. I've continued many of the same practices. One of the most important things I learned is there are many that I've integrated into who I am, but one of the things that people said, leave no stone unturned, but be prepared to live forever, and be prepared. No, plan to live forever, plan to live forever, and be prepared to die today. So I've kept my focus on planning to live forever.
And Ray, you had a lot of just like inspiring nuggets when we talked, and even today, anything that you want to add about your role as a caregiver?
Well, there's just two things I want to touch upon. One is for our family, what worked for our family was that my brother, his wife, myself, and my mom, we all had our opinion, but ultimately the buck stopped with my dad. So we would give our opinion. We would have sometimes very enthusiastic conversations, but ultimately whatever road he chose to travel, we went with him. So he knew he had that control of his treatment of his disease. So that was really important, and that's what worked for our family. I know there are other people that the person who is diagnosed with whatever condition, they don't want to know anything, and they abdicate all of that. So you have to figure out for you and for your group, particularly if you're in that caregiver role, what'll work best for you and the person that you're taking care of. And then one other thing I want to mention as a caregiver, you're in a sacred space with that person. When you're in there, you're with your husband. There's no friend, no acquaintance, there's nobody that has the responsibility that you have and the access that you have. And to walk that walk with a person is really incredible. One thing that you guys haven't heard before, I only have a little bit of time. My dad ended up in an inpatient hospice. And I was alone with him for the night. My mom had gone home, my wife was at a hotel, my brother was coming in from Denver, and I went to talk to him around midnight. He's out. And I'm telling him all the great things he did as a father. And after I pour my heart out, he looks at me and he goes, "I'm still here." And I go, you son of a gun. Gun was not the word. But, I was like, my goodness. But the blessing to me was that he got to hear me say that one more time. And then the blessing back was, him acknowledging that was incredible. So, all of you have your own journey, whether you're the patient or the caregiver. But, God bless all of you. And again, thank you for inviting me here today.
Thank you. Any last words from our couple, Tom and Tony? I love that there are differences as well as similarities as what you both agreed on, and may have had differences in how to approach the cancer experience. Any last words from the two of you before we transition to our Q&A?
I'd like to say one thing. The support group I host fills a niche, but there are many other support groups out there. Jay Sandler has a support group with ANCAN. They fill a different niche. I participate in about 4 other Zoom calls. They all are different and supportive in their own way. And I'm sure there's more than just that one. So I would encourage any survivor to reach out and find support groups, or if they contact me, I'll tell them some of the ones I know. But there is support out there.
Thank you, Tom. I definitely agree with that. So many different groups based on diagnosis, your age, the life experiences that you're dealing with, and just the own unique cultures that exist in a group, and trying out different ones till you find that right fit. And thank you so much for referencing that.
So lastly, I just want to say my husband was not very good about communicating how he felt during the process. He never complained about anything, so I kind of had to read his mind. And any of you people with a dog, you know what I mean. They just stand there. They either want to go out or they want a treat. And with him, that's kind of what I did. He wasn't eating and he wasn't sleeping. So when I went to one of his doctor's appointments, I said to his oncologist, he doesn't have an appetite. He has this metallic taste in his mouth. He's not sleeping. And she ended up prescribing him an antidepressant that I had sold in the past, which was ideal for cancer patients, and he did well on it. And there were other things that I needed to, observe, just from observing. And as the spouse or the partner, you probably know that person better than the doctor, and the doctor cannot read patients' minds. So you need to be the person who goes to the doctor and says, he's doing this or he's doing that, and he didn't do that before. Any kind of information that you can provide the doctor to become a better doctor and have a better patient outcome, I would highly suggest that.
Thank you. Thank you all to our survivors, our thrivers, and our caregivers, our support system, for being here and sharing your perspectives and the lessons learned. I want to open up for questions from the audience here and at home for our panel.
My name's Jay, and I just want to recommend Tom's support group. When I go there, I have a sense of being at home, and I'm with people who understand what I'm going through, because they're going through it as well. And that's a singular feeling that you can get no place else other than my support group, which is Thursday night, 5 o'clock, 4:30, than any other place in the world. And you're truly special. And I just have a question for Tony. Did Medicare cover the witch doctor?
For Julie. Yeah. No, and fortunately, I had resources to do all the other things. It didn't cover a lot of the other stuff. It didn't cover the acupuncture, a lot of stuff. But I figured, I earned it, I'll spend it. I've only got one life. And I have no regrets.
Well, he stole my line right now. Thank you, Tom. You've been awesome.
Okay.
And the one thing that I can say, I have really, I do feel like it's family, all the people that are in our group. And lastly, that I had so much hope after I spoke. He spent 40 minutes talking to me on the phone before I even joined the support group. And I got a lot of hope talking to you and being in the group. So thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm just getting texted from my caregiver asking questions about Tom. So, I'm not a dog. No, let's see. No, I'm just kidding. Well, first of all, I'm stage 4 diagnosed about 7 months ago. I just came out of FOLFIRINOX and came out well. This symposium has really, it's really made me understand a lot of things that I've been going through that I didn't understand. I really appreciate this so much. Much better than sitting at home. No, but honestly, I'm so glad I came, and I'm so glad I came in person. I met a lot of other survivors that were pointing to the screen and just going, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going through. So thank you very much for bringing some structure to this. But Tom, specifically a question. So you went straight to a clinical trial? Is that what I heard? And
Yes, I was.
did you go on to maintenance afterwards, or what happened?
I was very fortunate because at the first meeting with my oncologist, Dr. Tara Suri, she told me and my wife, just yesterday she signed up for a phase 2 clinical trial for PEG-20, which was sponsored by Halozyme. And my wife immediately said, we're in. So I was, again, I think a lot of our survival is dependent upon being at the right place at the right time with the right people. And I was just very fortunate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what if you're a solo ager and you don't have like a support group, you're not married or don't have any relatives?
I would like to address that because I am now solo, and the person that I was with has passed away, and I had the opportunity to be the caregiver for him. I think that's very unique and very, very special and very difficult to have the advocate. And I would wish that there were some sort of advocate program for single people, because it's really, really, really important. Someone that knows all the phases from, emotional, spiritual, physical, all of them that you go through. And I think it would be very difficult. I don't have anyone left in my family. My children, of course, would take care of me, but there's nobody that would be able to be there. They have their own lives. So I think that's a very unique niche that would be very, very helpful. So thank you for bringing it up.
I think another option may be a group like Sims Man because of the services that they offer. I think that could possibly maybe help you walk the walk that you're walking. And then, another thing, again, back to my dad, the question that a lot of people that are in treatment, they don't like the question, how are you feeling? Or how do you feel? So my father would say, with my hands. I mean, it was just like, if you're in the mood to talk about it, feel with my hands. And people would be shocked because, they're waiting for the whole litany of what they're going through with my hands. And right away, that would pivot the conversation 180 degrees. So remember, you are in control of what you want to talk about, when you want to talk about. And if you're the Lone Ranger back there, if you have a church group, whatever your interest might be, a hobby, whatever it might be, you can somehow, I'm sure, find a connection with those people that can somehow support you in that walk.
Thank you. And I want to add, as we wrap up to your question, I mean, just asking that question, that it starts there with communicating that need to your oncologist or your PCP, whomever you're following up with, so that they can connect you to that next step or next person. I think Joe mentioned Patient Navigator and certain services like that. Ray, you mentioned Sims Man Center. We have those resources to help get connected, to get those patients that don't have that support connected to support outside of the community and within their healthcare system. So ask for that help, and we'll get that support for you. It may not be perfect, but it's out there, and you will have a lot of different creative ideas to put your needs together.
He could also participate in a Zoom support group. Perhaps there's somebody who lives nearby that can help him. But the people on the support Zoom call, they're fantastic about resources.
Yeah, I can tell. Your fan club showed up today to support you. So I think
he can get in touch with Tom. He has flyers out there.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think it's really meaningful to witness the support that goes beyond like the screen, and being able to show up for each other when we can. So again, thank you so much on behalf of myself and the Hirschberg Foundation to you all for joining us this year and being so vulnerable and reflective in your experiences and sharing with all of us. Thank you everyone for joining us.